Welcome to the End User Tools presents Exotic Wood Borer Bark Beetle Trapping Data Collection using the ArcGIS Field Maps application. Much anticipated training for 2023. I have a poll up on your screen, which it looks like most of you have participated. I'm just asking what mobile device you plan to use to collect data for EWBBB, and I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. So last minute submissions are welcome, and I'm going to end that. And I'm just going to share the results with you so you can see what we're looking at here. I'm just curious. We've got iPad, iPhone, and I'm not sure yet, and that's totally fair at this point. We see iPhone is beating iPad by just a tiny bit, 52% to 60%. So that helps me quite a bit. I'm going to stop sharing that poll and go ahead and close that out. But like I said, we're here to talk about EWBBB for 2023, and I'm pretty excited about that. I just wanted to share a little a thought with you. I just read one of those like morning thoughts, and it said, "You can't see your face in boiling water." And the idea, I guess, behind that is when everything's in turmoil, when you're dealing with the normal life whirlwind, it's hard to focus and think about what needs to happen and see clearly. So maybe you can see your face, but it's kind of fuzzy. So today we're just going to take a few minutes and really let that water settle and think about how to enter data in this app for EWBBB. So thank you for joining me and taking a few moments to do that. I'll turn my camera off now that you've seen me, and I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat for you. And these are two resources that will help you out with this training a little bit. At this point, you should have an idea of a mobile device, so that 8% of you, you'll need to figure out how you're going to collect data. And you should feel pretty comfortable using it. You'll want to feel kind of comfortable with the Field Maps application. We started using that last year. So you might feel pretty secure in using that, but you might also want to refresh your use of that, and there is training available. And then survey protocol, you'll want to go to your National Operations Manager for EWBBB, which is Lisa Jackson. So those two quick resources, let me show you what those look like on the screen. The first one is this mobile data collection tools website. You'll find all things training on data collection on this website. You can see the first half is all kind of documents. Under pest program specific training documents, you will find EWBBB has its own category with a user manual and a quick reference guide. So if you're stuck or something I show you goes too fast, there are step-by-step snapshots and everything there for you. I'm going to go back one. You may have noticed that this training is being recorded. The second or bottom half of this main page here is a video gallery, and you'll see this video pop up here under pest programs. So you can search by title, you can go ahead and plug in EWBBB, or you should actually see it right up at the top because it will be the most recent. Give me about a week, maybe a little less, to get that video up on the website, but you will be able to refer to this training again here. So keep this website handy. The second link is a training quiz, and you don't have to take the quiz, but I also give it to you early. So if you want to, you can open it if you have a screen available and want to. You can take this quiz just as we go today in training. This quiz is going to give you, when you submit it, an automated email that says, "Congratulations, you completed the training." Maybe your supervisor likes to see those. Maybe if you're like me, I like to tuck those away in a little, I save them in a little folder on OneDrive as my list of accomplishments for the year. For me, it gives me a little metric that folks are attending my training and that they're learning. So I can see how you do if I'm getting the information across very well. So it helps me out a little bit just to know I've got some numbers here and folks are listening and getting what I'm saying. So it helps me, and it gives you that little automated response. But feel free to open that and go ahead and fill that out. This question 3 on the email address, type that carefully. That's what gives you your email completion response. So just be careful on question 3. Otherwise, do your best. There's no pressure here, and good luck with that. But but feel free to do that anytime. Basically, the idea is it's kind of an analogy of what to expect in today's training. Hopefully you're a little higher up than this guy is on these stairs. We're looking for that prize, that trophy at the top, which is just feeling totally confident in entering field data on EWBBB trapping. So there's a couple steps before this, as I mentioned. Survey protocol, you'll want to have a device you feel good about. You're going to want to feel good about that mobile app, the ArcGIS Field Maps app. And I can help with some of that, but not all of that. And so you're going to want to be along the way there a little bit. And if not yet, then go ahead and catch up on that. So your EWBBB NOM, or National Operations Manager, Lisa Jackson, is responsible for communicating the survey protocol requirements. And this training is your quick stop to make sure you understand how to use that application to enter data trapping for EWBBB as it was designed. And there is one little kind of quick little photo I can give you here. I learned this term pretty recently, but I've always thought of it as like an animal path or a human path, or, on the side of the hill, you see this little path where the deer go, the deer path. In this case, it's called a desire path. And you can see that folks have gotten off the normal path here and just cut right through the grass to get to where they want to go, the most common. I'm here to kind of beg you to take the path officially laid out rather than the shortcuts that you might find. Just ask you to humor me on the things that I demonstrate today. And the number one issue that I'm thinking of in my head is collecting data well disconnected. And I'm thinking of this especially for you iPhone users. It's really easy to think to yourself, I'm connected to the internet and I've got cellular data and I don't need to worry about downloading an offline map and preparing for that. But please, please, please do go through this workflow. There are many good reasons to do so, which we'll discuss a little bit further later in this training, but do not use a connected mode with a device such as an iPhone and collect data live. We want to go ahead and avoid, you saw that little X, I'll put it back on that desire path. Let's stay on the path in this training. So just a little quick little, please stay on the path, keep your arms and legs in kind of warning here. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, just a little bit on this ArcGIS Field Maps app and how to sign into it. Just a few little screenshots there to make sure we're clear. We're going to review that or overview that disconnected workflow that I spoke of. We're going to talk about the layers that are in this EWBBB data collection tool and the data form. We're going to look at it. I'll demonstrate on my iPad. It's got a bigger screen, but if I remember, and I'm going to try to remember, I'll give you a view of what that looks like on my I have my government issued iPhone here too, so you can see just the difference between. There's not really a difference, it's just a smaller screen, so it gets crowded, but I'll try to remember to show that to you too. And then finally, just a couple of reminders of what to pay special attention to. So let's get started on ArcGIS Field Maps. What you need to know is there is a user guide and there is a self-paced video series. That again is on that mobile data collection tools webpage. So look for that if you need a little bit more support to make you feel comfortable and confident using it. This app is specifically designed to be used while disconnected. So again, here I am talking about disconnected mode. But when you first open it up, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. And it's got a couple of options to sign in right off the bat. It asks you to sign in using ArcGIS Online or Enterprise or skip sign in. And here in the government, we use this FedRAMP Secure Enterprise portal. So we're always going to tap sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. And then it's going to ask you to, the first time you sign in, it's going to look something like this. It'll only have these bottom two options. Specify a new URL or scan code, and we're going to tap specify a new URL and use the keyboard to carefully type in that URL. And then after that, you can see I've got a URL up here. This is the URL I've carefully typed in previously, and then ever after that's going to stick there for me, and I can just go ahead and tap the URL itself. Field Maps tries to help you out, but the first time you sign in, you'll have to type that in with care. And then it's going to ask you to go through an EOS process. So I'll I'll let you look at the documentation. That's of course available in the user guide for EWBBB itself. It walks you through that sign in, and also in that video series for ArcGIS Field Maps. So I'll leave it at that, but you want to make sure that you're typing in that URL with care. Now, End User Tools also does a favor of those trying to practice or get used to using these things, in that we create a training version in a staging portal. So there are actually two versions of this EWBBB map. One is for official data collection, and this is the URL, which is the same one we just saw on the previous screen. And then one is for training or practice, and it's held in the stage portal. I'm just going to give you a couple of hints at what the difference is. So we've got maps.mrp and we've got maps-stg.mrp. That STG stands for stage. And the big caveat here is we want you to be able to practice, or in the case of today, I'll use the training map for demonstration so that we can kind of play in it. But you want to be sure, and this is a question on your quiz, you want to be sure that data that's being entered in a training or practice map or in that stage portal is not official data, and vice versa. So you don't want to use the official map, the official data collection map in the MRP enterprise portal for practice or play. You want to make sure official data is in the official map and training or play data is in that stage or training map. So just be very careful there. And I'd say if you're in doubt as to which portal you're logged into or signed into, when in doubt, sign out. And I'll show you what that looks like quickly today too. The disconnected mode workflow, or collecting data while disconnected. As I said, this is really important. Remember, resist the desire to collect data while connected, stay on the path. As I said, this application, the ArcGIS Field Maps application, was specifically designed to operate in disconnected mode. It is a field app, and it's assumed in the field you don't have consistent or reliable Wi-Fi or internet connection. So an area of interest is collected or downloaded to your device while you are connected to Wi-Fi. And then the device is disconnected from the internet. I recommend at that point a little parking lot test. So we've got a bullet point here. Make sure before you leave, everything's working as assumed. Disconnect and then go out into the field, collect data all day without any connection at all in that downloaded map. And then at the end of the day, or when you're finished, connect back to a reliable Wi-Fi network, synchronize your data collection. That sync operates two ways. So it puts your data collected from that device, pushes that up into the online map, and pulls other data into your downloaded map area. So it updates both sides. And, you know, a last bullet, maybe charge your device, might be a good time for that. But these steps are really important in the red box here. So they're important in preparation. And then also the daily data sync. So I'm going to give you a little whirl there. That's the important one. And the daily data sync is also very important. As I said, it brings in updates into your map as well. And we'll talk about it in the next slide, but there's a data layer now that's being updated by GIS with nightly scripts. And there's a new map nodes layer that could use updates as well. So that updates your downloaded map, as well as pushing your vital collected data from the field up into that online map. So make sure that you've got that office prep down, but pay special attention to that daily sync. All right, the data layers. EWBBB has a couple of new data layers. This enabled one, or the blue toggle, is the trap sites layer. That's your real active layer where you're adding trap sites and entering activities on those trap sites. But there are two other layers here. This top one above it, the EWBBB trap schedule status, that one is being updated by GIS nightly. It is not edited by you, and every 14 days we'll change a symbology for that trap to show that it is due. So right now this is showing that not on or disabled, but if you turn it on, it sits right over the top of that trap sites layer, and the symbology shows the schedule status. I'll show you that too. Just below the trap sites layer is another layer that is editable by you, the map notes points layer. And this is meant to share things like hazards or information. And this layer is shared among all trappers or all surveyors for EWBBB. So be careful there that you are only sharing things that everyone can see, but it's meant to share hazards or information that would be helpful to the trapper. Below that is the trap sites for 2022, last year's trap sites, and this is a reference layer only. So that would be used to help you see where traps were placed last year. So we have two layers that are editable and two that are for your reference. The middle two, trap sites for 2023 and map notes, are yours to edit. Let's dive into a little bit of trapping workflow and then I'll show you what these look like. So basically a trapping workflow as far as how the data is entered looks something like this. The first visit is placing that trap or placing that symbol on the map. And there's a little data form there that establishes that on the first visit, the trap was installed. So there's an install date that just tells the user it's been installed. And then all future visits to that same trap site are connected or kind of nested within that placing a trap as an activity. And those activities might be things like monitoring, maybe you remove it, maybe replacing lure, all of those types of things that happen to that trap site. The trap site itself doesn't change. There's an activity on that trap site. So first visit is placing a trap. All future visits are an activity. Now there's a couple things that sometimes get folks a little bit confused. One is the relocate workflow. And if you think it through, it's not too hard to figure out. But on the relocate workflow, on that original spot, what you're going to do is enter an activity, which is removing that trap. And that means that that original trap site is going to stay on the map. Sometimes people think, well, I've entered an activity of remove, that symbol should disappear, but that's not true at all. In fact, it is correct that that symbol remain, and it's important to data entry history because what it is the entire history of that trap site with the last activity being that it was removed. And then you walk your way over to the new site and you start over with the whole flow, placing a trap and all future visits being activities. But it's just important to remember that the last activity on the original spot is remove, and then you move on to the next. But that symbol should stay. So this symbol remains with that last activity, remove trap. Okay, let's have a look at what these look like. Starting with, remember there are two layers that you may edit, and the first one is what we're talking about, trapping. So the trap sites layer. So I'm going to share my iPad and give you a view of what that looks like. This is a PPQ iPad. It's out of its case. Please don't do that. I'm taking a risk here. Don't do as I do, but it gets a little hard to see with a glare with the camera. So I've taken it out of its OtterBox case, and I'm just going to go ahead and open Field Maps by tapping that. And Field Maps is going to try to take me right into the last map I was in, which happens to be EWBBB. And I'm just going to go back twice to my main page of maps, and I may have more maps than you do. What I'm looking for is the training version, and that's a big hint that I am in the right portal or the stage portal, because all of the training maps are held in that stage portal. And if I'm in doubt in any way, I can go to my profile up at the top left here, scroll up just a bit and sign out. Remember, when in doubt, sign out. But I know I'm in the right one because I'm seeing training in the title, and I have already downloaded offline areas. So I can see that right here in that map card, offline areas exist. So I'll open the map card and I can see that I have an online map and my downloaded map area. And the reason why I'm seeing this online map is that I have remained connected to Wi-Fi. So I can see that I've got the little Wi-Fi signal. I've got Wi-Fi connected here, but if I was not, I would not see that. And in fact, this morning we had a little trouble with the stage portal being down, and because I had downloaded an offline map, this offline map here, I wasn't concerned at all because I could continue to work in my offline map and then sync my updates later once that portal was up. So that's one really good reason to have an offline area ready to go. So I can see here I've got my offline area. I've renamed it, so I know that this is just my naming protocol, but if you want to rename your offline area, you can go ahead and do that here with rename. You can also sync here from this view. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to open up my offline area. And you can see there's some points here, some trap sites here. I'm going to go ahead and just explain a couple things along the top. This is our sync icon, the two arrows. If you are working online, you will not see these two arrows, and that means you are connected. So you want to see this sync button here, these two arrows, one coming in and one going out. That means I'm working in an offline map. Even while connected, I am working offline in this map. So I will have to sync whatever we add today. And then this little stack of papers here is your layer menu. And you can see the same view as that slide we had earlier. And if I turn on the map, the trap schedule status, you can see the symbology over the top changed. I'll turn that back off and back on. So I see that I've got check marks, which we'll find out what that means in just a moment. And I'm going to turn on my map notes points as well. And you can see that added a couple points here, question mark points. And how do I find out what that is? Well, this little 3-dot menu here has a legend for me. So while these layers are visible, I can find out what their symbols mean. If they're not turned on, I won't see that in the legend. So I went ahead and enabled the ones I want to see. I'm going to have a look at the legend. And we can see that the check mark means these are current. And that would change to a little minus sign if they were due and an X if inactive. So if you were to go ahead and, for instance, in that relocation workflow, if you were to enter an activity of removing a trap, overnight, the GIS script will see that that was entered, and that trap will then the next morning show up with that X or inactive. So it's important that you check this and have the trap schedule status on to make sure that you're working on a trap that either is due for service or maybe has been moved or anything like that. And you can see that the trap sites are normally symbolized by the trap and lure combo. And then this map notes points is symbolized with a red circle for hazard and a blue for info. And just to see what that looks like, we'll look at that in a little bit. I'm going to X out of that. So I'm going to turn off the schedule status because that's distracting me for now. And let's say we want to place a trap. So to add data, we tap this add button. I know, pretty simple, right? And that opens a choice. So we can choose then a trap lure combo here. And again, I don't teach survey protocol. In fact, I don't know it. So I'm going to pick something that may make no sense, but let's see, what do I not have? I'll go for this one. And you can see it created a symbol. I'm going to pull this for the sake of you being able to see it away and update the point up there. Okay, so now that's our trap that we're adding right here. And it pulled in that trap and lure. And we've got some fields here with a little gray asterisk. That means they are required. And if they don't have that, it's not required. If I tap that open field, it gives me a list of choices. I can just tap and choose. Again, probably totally doesn't make any sense. Site name, I'm going to give it a name. And again, we're just practicing here, so I'm just playing around. If the next field is going to use the keyboard, you get a next button here. I can hit done to close the keyboard, or I can just hit next. And now we're on trap ID. I'm going to name it the same and done. The agency here is defaulted to USDA-APHIS, but if I need to change it, I open it and change it. I'll do University Cooperator. Surveyor has a hint. It says first and last names. I'm going to go ahead and listen to that hint and do my first and last name. Install date is a little tricky for me sometimes. We are limited to the year. So if I go back far enough, you see I can't tap on anything from December, but let's say I accidentally hit a date that's not today. If I need to get back to today, if I just tap this today, here we are back to today's timestamp, date and time. And I like to close this once I've done that so that I don't accidentally hit another date. You can do that just by tapping again on the field, and that's closed up. And I'm going to say test here just to be sure that everyone knows this is not a real site I'm playing around. And then there's a couple of optional groups here. We've got optional address. To open this group, it's minimized now. I can kind of tap the name, and then now we've got address information. Same thing for optional contact information, contact type, name, and phone. And you see there's no asterisk here. These are optional fields, so they don't have to be completed unless you really do know them. And then these quality control information, this is not editable by you and maintained by either editors or GIS. So I've filled out, I think, everything I need. I'm going to go through and make sure of that. Sometimes it helps to close up these groups that we're not using and scroll on up and make sure that data looks good. And it looks good to me. I'm going to hit submit. And right away, you can see that it's changed something up here in this sync button. We've got a little dot on the arrow that goes out. It's just a quick indicator that there is an edit sitting on my downloaded map here that needs to be synced back up to that online map. While this trap site is selected, it's got a little blue halo around it. I can tap anywhere on the map or hit X to deselect, and you can see it changed back just on its own. Let's say we're going to perform an activity on another trap site. So I'm going to select this one over here just by tapping it. You may have to zoom in and out to be sure that you've got the right trap, and you'd want to check with your trap ID to be sure you're on the right trap. But while it's selected, I can either tap this link button or scroll up on the form until I find EWBBB trap activities, which has that link icon as well, and tap that to open the activities table. And I can see that it has been monitored once before last month, and I'm going to add another monitoring activity by tapping add. Again, same thing. I've got required fields. I've got some hints. I know I have to put in my first and last name. I'm going to do that quickly. It's a monitor activity type by default, but if I wanted to come in here and change that, I just go ahead and choose something else. For instance, any of these removes would then give me the next day that updated GIS script that says, okay, that trap is inactive. So if I were to choose those, that happens. I'm going to go ahead with monitor again. I did not take a field sample, so I'll say none. And I'm going to again make a little hint here that this was just a test. Activity date. Again, I want to make sure that that is today and close it up. Give it a quick check. Everything looks good, and submit. Finally, let's say that I'm going to close that all up again. Let's say that we find that we needed to edit something we entered in the form was incorrect. So I'm going to say we need to edit something on this guy. Select it and open that main data form. And we have the option now, we can view the form as it exists, but we do have this other icon here, this pencil, and many of you probably know that to be the editing icon. I can tap that pencil, or just like the activities table, I can scroll on up until I see that edit option and hit edit. And now that data form is open for editing. And really anything you enter is an edit, but this one is editing an existing data form. So I can say, oh, you know, I thought that was an elm tree. Actually, it was a chestnut. Whoops, my mistake. And then I'm going to have to hit submit on that change. So I'll hit submit. And there we go. Okay, so that's the trap sites layer and the activities table associated with those trap sites. Let's look at that one other editable layer. Remember, that layer is the map points map notes points layer, and that's meant to give you information which shares across everyone's map on hazards or information. And you can see I have a couple here. If I select the hazard here, this is just my idea of an example. This has the hazard is the type. I'm the one that entered it there. The comments are that it's a footbridge over a canal with varied water flow strength and levels. Maybe you don't want to place a trap under there. The date the note was entered, and some editing information. I can also edit this, see the pencils there, or scroll up and find edit. But let's enter a new one. So while that layer is active, if I hit this plus or add data button and scroll on down, it's the layer below our normal trap sites layer. So here it is, either a hazard or info is our choice. Let's enter an info. And I'm going to, again, just for the sake of you being able to see it, pull that point away from where I am just a little bit and update it. So there's our little info symbol. And we have the same kind of form. These are all required fields. We have to enter in our first and last name. We have to add comments. This is an info comment, and you can't just say info with no information. So let's say there's a dog park here or something that we want to note. You can, of course, go into much more detail. And then today's date would be the date that we're making this note. Maybe that's a different date. I'm going to go ahead with that, and I'll say submit. So there's an idea. Another idea I had for info over here, it's in a park. I just said nice shady spot for lunch or break, public restroom. That might be nice if you're out trapping for the day. So there's a couple of ideas there. So I'm going to close that up, but you can see I have a sync button here that says please sync. I'm going to go ahead and tap that because I want to show you a couple things here on this sync menu. So I could sync by tapping this blue button. Obviously, this is how you sync now. The auto sync is disabled, and this should be the case always. Auto sync tries to sync whenever the device detects that there is a Wi-Fi connection, and you don't want that to be interrupted by a poor connection or the device just not knowing what it's doing. So you want to make sure that auto sync is off and that you manually take control of this sync task at the end of the day, or when you have found yourself in a reliable Wi-Fi network and connected to it. We also have pending edits listed, which is really handy. So this is what we've just done together, you and I. And if we wanted to go ahead and have a look at one of those, like this new one that we just entered, test 4, I can tap it and have a look. Or I could have a look on the map itself. So if I was going to sync, I would hit this. I'm not going to worry about that today, but I just wanted to show you those few things. Make sure that that auto sync is disabled. Okay, so we went through the EWBBB trap sites layer, which also has that connected activities table. We also had a look at the map notes points and talked about how to maybe use that. Maybe your minds are already just going crazy with ideas there. A couple things we want to remember. Definitely don't forget, enter official data in that official production portal, and training, or I'm doing air quotes, play data in the stage portal. So make sure you're keeping those separate and sign out if you have any doubt at all. Make sure you're using that disconnected data collection method. And make sure that you're daily using that data sync. In fact, I would recommend doing it in the morning before you leave to be sure that your map is completely up to date. So before you go out into the parking lot, when you're in that office and you're connected to Wi-Fi, go ahead and hit sync, even if you don't have anything to go out, because that updates your map as well, remember. So I'd recommend morning and evening, actually, if you have the time. Be careful with data collection. I don't mean this to be insulting. I mean this to be a personal problem of mine. It always helps to give that data form one more look, and I can't tell you how many times I've found I've maybe fat fingered my own name or the date, etc. So always give it one more look before submitting things. The map notes layer, just be a little bit cautious with that. Remember that is shared with everyone. So make sure that the data that you're entering there is okay for public view and it is shareable across all. There's another layer we didn't discuss. It's a markup layer, and it's really just a default inclusion of ArcGIS Field Maps, the application itself. And that layer is really a private layer. So the map notes layer is shared to all. The markup layer stays on your device unless you find a way to share it. So recommend using the map notes layer for sharing information, and I really don't recommend using that markup layer unless you really feel like it's necessary or your supervisor is advising you to. The submit button, we didn't see it fail today, but it only fails if you are missing a required field, and it will help you locate that field with messaging as well. So if you hit submit and it fails to submit, it's going to walk you through what you need to do next. So watch for that as well. We went over a lot today and pretty fast, even though we tried to kind of take our time with it. You might need to get some help from Lisa Jackson, your National Operations Manager, if it's program protocol related. Obviously, I didn't do a great job of that. I don't follow protocol. I just kind of show you how to enter data. But if you need help with that, reach out to Lisa. I say iPad issues, but iPhones are also supported by CECIT. And if something isn't working right, open a ticket and get their help. We pay them to support these devices. If you've got an issue with getting access to these maps or learning how to use the application itself, start with your supervisor. So I've put these little tabs in order. Start with your supervisor. They know where to go. If you need further help, your supervisor might reach out to the local field GIS specialist, or they may use this email address to get more help if needed. Finally, everything training, it's EUTG stands for End User Tools Group. That's my group. And remember this mobile data collection tools webpage and use that to find all training support. All right, so our objectives for today were to talk about this app a little bit, how to sign in, the official versus the training sign-in options, the disconnected workflow. We looked at the two operational or two editable layers, and we looked at those data forms, and we did that live together. One thing I missed was showing you the iPhone view, so I'm just going to do that real quick for you. And I always forget something, y'all. Sorry about that. So here's my iPhone, and you can see it's a smaller screen, and we're looking for field maps. There we go. And if I open that up, there's EWBBB, and I'm going to open up that downloaded area. Again, I'm connected to Wi-Fi, but I would want to disconnect from Wi-Fi. It doesn't seem to want to sign in right now. I'm just going to ignore that so you can see what it looks like. But if I wanted to collect data, again, I'm seeing that sync button that tells me I'm in an offline map. So that's a yay, good job, thumbs up. And I've got the same layers here popping up from the bottom. I've got the same legend here for me to view. I can X out of that. If I need to add data, so if I was going to add data, there's my little add button. And that opens the same options. I choose a trap and lure combo. Then I have the data form here. It's the same data form. If I want to, as you just saw, I pulled that data form open. I can pull it down so that I can see the map, and I can use my fingers to zoom in and out on the map and make sure that I've got myself placed. But it's really the same. It's just sharing a little bit less screen real estate. And so so that's what it looks like for you on the iPhone. But you want to make absolutely certain that even though you have cellular data and might feel connected, please use that same disconnected workflow on your iPhone and submit things that way. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. Sorry about that, guys. I always forget something. Okay, and then finally, we looked over some reminders and some things to pay special attention to. Just a quick reminder, that quiz, if you wouldn't mind, have a look at that. I put it in the I put it in the chat box, but go ahead and check out that quiz and test yourself on what we talked through here today, and make sure that you heard what I'm laying out there and get that little email kind of kudos for you. So that's it for me. I know that was a little speedy, so I'm just going to pause and say, are there any questions? Was there anything that you would like to see again, or anything that I missed from anyone? Vlad pointed out that my phone is signed into the production portal, and that's true. And that was a good point. Thanks, Vlad. You might have noticed that the titling was different, and I had a much different, let me pull that up again so you can see the differences. And actually that was intentional originally. You know how you forget what you're doing, but you see the difference in the map backgrounds. So here behind we've got our iPad and it's this dull gray, and so that's our training map, looks dull gray. And remember the title, if I move it over here, the title of the map up at the top, training, is right there, all caps. And then here on my phone, we're looking at a beautiful imagery map backdrop. And this is our production portal. And if I go back, you're going to see that the name has no training in it. The title starts right off PPQ. So yes, thank you, Vlad, for pointing that out. That's another really cool difference between these two maps. So if you find that you're looking at a beautiful backdrop and you just want to play and practice, you are in the wrong map. So pay special attention to that. And again, really the same thing. When in doubt, go to that profile and sign out and make sure that you've signed into the correct one. Thanks, Vlad. That was a good point. All right, and I've got a question whether I'd be showing the steps to download an offline map. I don't intend to today. There are separate videos on that. Again, you can find that here on this page, and there's a whole lot of videos here. Let's see what happens if I say offline map. Here's ArcGIS Field Maps. That's our application, and a video totally dedicated to how to download a map area. So watch that if you need a little refresher. Our training is under the general training documents for ArcGIS Field Maps. See that there? So if I go there, there is a user guide that walks you through it too, if you prefer to look at a document that helps you out. I'm going to leave you on this Getting Help page so that you have that there. Thank you so much for all you do, and please reach out to any of these folks or myself if you need any additional support. I'll let you go, and good luck out there.